Okay, welcome to tutorial 19. The previous tutorial we were looking at web views, and this one here we're going to look at how do we load web pages from a table view. Alright? So what we did is we took this is the same application. We got rid of the table view, the web view underneath the AppDelegate, and we put in a navigational controller. That being said, we had to then declare a navigational controller instead of a web view here, and synthesize, give it life here. Here's a nav controller, and then connect that. Whoops. Here we go. Connect the navigational controller right here as a referencing outlet so that it could be loaded in. And then, of course, now what we see here, which, by the way, right here as a class, is a navigational controller class. We now load, instead of our root view being the web view, our root view now becomes the navigational controller, and in this case the web page table view, which is here. Now we had to access the AppDelegate. We created this URL variable as well. We'll get to that in a moment. The array here, I'm going to go to the AppDelegate first. We had to create an array for a list of websites. We had to create an URL here as well for the selected URL. So when we select it here, we can store it here and then push it here. Make sense? You have to think of it that way. If I'm selecting it in one class, I need to store it in the AppDelegate and then retrieve it in the other class, and of course push that. So the URL on the website, you then create the properties here, which will get our getters and setters. We're going to retain them, and of course synthesize them here. And we're going to create a temp array as well to give us space for the website array, and of course release the temp array. That'll give us room to fill this. Remember, we only declared it, we didn't implement it. We're going to give it room so we can fill it at that point. And that's the only thing, and then of course we're going to release those two here. The only two things that we did with the AppDelegate. That's it. We created two other variables here, and instead of having our web view, it's a navigational controller. Alright? I hope I'm not going too fast. So we then come to the table view. And the table view, we also created an NSURL variable. Why? We'll get to that in a second. Let's look in the Viewdidload method. We create an instance of our AppDelegate. We initialize it with the objects here. These are our names of our websites, and then we sort them, right? And of course, in the unload method here, we're going to release it since we retained it. Whenever you retain something, you have a +1 rating to it, so you have to release it to be a good memory citizen. Okay. In our data source here, we have only one section. In other words, we don't have a sectional type of table view, which is one full table, one section. The number of rows will be based upon the website array count. So, for example, here we initialize this with 5 items. So the count will be 5. So I just right here will be 5. It'll return the count of the array. And then here, with our cell, the actual text in the cell will be the object at the current index path row of the website. And that's really it. So it'll return for each line, it'll place each object in there. And remember, they're going to be in order, so the first one would be, of course, the AOL. That'll be at 0. And then you're going to have them going from your next one should be Google, and after Google, MSN, and of course Yahoo, and then YouTube. And that's how they should fill in. Okay. So we're going to run this just to confirm that this is right. Okay, sure enough, there they are. As promised, title is webpages and the list is here. Now, we need the didSelect method. I have some code that has been I've copied. I'm going to paste it in. I'm going to go over this code for a moment here. We create an instance of the View controller. This is our actual web controller here. Remember, we import the header file so we have access to that class, and then we create an instance of that class. We allocate it, initialize with a nib name, and the nib name must be right. If this is typed incorrectly, this nib name will be incorrect, and what will happen is it will access a nib that does not exist, and you will get an error message. Okay. So we do a switch method here. We look at the index path row. Remember, the first line in the table is actually row 0. So for row 0, return this is the URL instance in the class that we created. We want to be able to assign the URL that we're going to need based upon the row we select. That's what this instance is for. Okay. And so if we select row 1, which is actually row 0, we get AOL's URL, and then row 2, which is in this case 1, we get Google, and so on and so forth. And then we say take the AppDelegate my URL, the one that defines what URL is selected, and set it equal to the current URL that's been selected. So that now we have the item that is, or the URL what we're saying is we've selected that website, and because of it we now have the URL that we need. So we can, when in this view controller here, we can then push that, and then as you see here, right, we create an instance of, again, the AppDelegate. We run the load request with the object that we created here, or actually declared here, I should say. We load request, and we use the selected URL in the AppDelegate. That's why we need the instance of the AppDelegate. So it gives us the ability of taking what's selected here, storing it here, and retrieving it here. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Okay, the switch statement, by the way, lets us iterate through possibilities of what's selected. And when you do SQLite, you wouldn't have to do this. It would be one line. You would basically select the text, whatever the selected text is. You would query the database based on the selected text and have it return to you the appropriate URL. It would be easy. You could also then, if you wanted, add websites as well to it. But in this case, we're static. Right? So, and then of course, the final one is to push the view using the MyWB web controller instance here, and then of course we release it. So we're going to run this, and just to be sure here, and we're going to select I don't know Google, and Google will load. and we're going to select YouTube, and that loads nicely. And how about AOL? Okay, and MSN. Alright, and Yahoo. Now Yahoo loaded as well. We got some client registration error with Yahoo, and that's really how you do it. Now, one other thing, I think we'll do this in the next tutorial. We should probably add the back button and the forward button, because you can come in here and then do a search here and move forward, but moving back is a no-no. You can't do anything to that. There's nothing. You'd have to go out and back in, and what good would that do you? So you could even, if you wanted to title this search engines or something, you could do that too. But again, this is how you can, from a simple table view, push a website and bring up the web view based upon that. It's really, really neat. Okay, so when we come back on the next one, I think we're going to show you how to put the back and forward buttons in and so on. But the bottom line is, what did we do here, just to sum up? We populated a table view with our web pages, or the names of the sites. We then, which based upon what's selected, we stored the URL in the AppDelegate URL variable, and when we go to push this here, right over here, we retrieve that stored URL and we load it up. And that's really it. Now, if you were doing this with a picker, it would be the same, very similar. So again, this is nothing that's really too difficult to do. When you want to use this application, or when you can use it, and how it suits your needs, is again dependent upon you. So I think I want to show you tutorial 20. We will put the back and forward buttons in, and that would be it. That's all I would do. And if you wanted to just search from that web page forward, or go back or forward, you could do that. But that's really it. I hope this is helpful. The code I will post at my website at some point, and this way you can see this. So again, I hope this is useful to you, and take care.